And welcome in, everyone, to the It's Official podcast. I'm Jeremy Plonk. He's Jeff Siegel. We're representing First Bet and Express Bet, our weekly banter show, back after a sick absence last week. We're ready to rock and roll. We'll be with you next week as well, prior to the Thanksgiving break. So looking forward to the next couple of weeks, Jeff. The topics in racing, maybe not as scintillating as they are going into the Breeders' Cup or into the Triple Crown season, but we got plenty to talk about still.
If there's no news, we'll create it. How about that? I thought, this time of the year, you're kind of looking to find something that you can kind of latch on. And thanks to Michael McCarthy the weekend at Del Mar, we've got a lead topic, which I'm quite frankly rather excited about. And we'll talk about that as well. Wesley Ward has got a fast one that we'll talk about as well, and a few others. So we've got things to talk about and looking forward. Actually, because we're not going to be on next week, but that's a big day of racing at Aqueduct first Saturday in December. So some very important races there, and then of course the beginning of the championship meeting at Gulfstream Park. So things are still happening, even though it's a little bit quiet right now.
And this topic doesn't make our 5 this week because it literally happened right before the recording of our podcast. But I don't know if you saw in Lingfield, England this morning, there was a 5-horse field where 4 of the jockeys misjudged the distance and a 25-1 shot won by about 20 lengths while nobody else thought the race was over at that point. So what happened? The stewards ruled in an hour that there are 10-day bans on the 4 jockeys who misjudged the race. In an hour, a suspension already announced. I just wonder if stewards in Kentucky or California or Florida or around the United States may have paid attention to Lingfield, Jeff. How about that for swift justice?
Well, you have to wake them up sometimes, I mean, I don't know how you do that. You go out there and you don't even know where the finish line is. We've seen that happen here in the States.
Right.
And a 10-day ban will get your attention, right?
Yes.
So, they do things a little quicker there than we do here. So, but that's kind of weird. And of course, that would bring, if that ever happened in the States, you think the fix was in, so.
Well, I think that's kind of what they thought when every other horse in the race was a fairly short price except that one. And the fix may have been in. We'll keep our ears to the internet and see what happens with that story out of Lingfield today on the all weather. That's our topic 1/2 this week on It's Official. Let's go to number 1 on the board. It is the Big Mac attack at Del Mar. No, not what Trump and everybody was eating on the plane after the election and after the UFC fight. These Big Macs were served courtesy of Michael McCarthy. The trainer had a huge weekend. He's got his hand to play now for the Triple Crown season after Bullard won the Bob Hope and Journalism won in Maiden Company. Let's take a look at the first of the 2 Big Mac attacks. That was Bullard in the Bob Hope at Del Mar.
As Mackenzie Street shakes away up front. And now the first-time starter Madaket Road has taken second. Bullard now setting sail for the top 2. Going to come 3 wide. A 43.93 half. And they're into the stretch. It's Mackenzie Street in front. Bullard moves up alongside. On the rail, Madaket Road is third, but Bullard has taken the lead. Bullard pulling away here in the Bob Hope. From last to first under Umberto Rispoli, Bullard wins by 5 lengths on the wire.
Jeff, you expect Bob Baffert to win this race? He had won the Bob Hope 5 of the last 6 years, the former Hollywood preview, but new sheriff in town, at least for on this particular day. His name was Bullard.
He's a son of gun runner. So when you get a 2-year-old who's undefeated, a graded stakes winner as a juvenile and wins like that, and you're my gun runner, you got to say to yourself, I like where I'm at after the first of the year. And there's another colt we'll talk about in a minute from the same stable that looks equally impressive. But Bullard had won his first start, and he had trained well, but not like he had looked like when he won his maiden, and not like he looked here. He's a big, good-looking colt. They gave a lot of money for him, $675,000 as a yearling. And you'd have to think that based on his running style, he'll get nothing but better with distance, with maturity, with experience. You've got to like where he's at this stage. And I'm going to make a statement here that maybe will hold me to this about 4 months down the road here. But with this colt, if someone asked me, you could have any 2 colts from the same barn. You could have 2 of Baffert's for those classics next year, any 2. Or you could have 2 of McCarthy's, any 2. I would be taking the McCarthys at this stage
Hmm.
because I think this colt and then the colt that you mentioned earlier, Journalism, we'll talk about him. They have upside that I don't think the Bafferts have in terms of classic distances. And the way Bullard ran here, you'd have to think that he will go better over a distance of ground. All the gun runners seems to do that. And now that they figured out, you just hold them up and let them run the last quarter, which I don't think they really knew what this colt wanted to do prior to it starting. I think you've got a lot of work, lots to work with, and the numbers are strong. It's not like he's slow on figures. He is fast on figures. He got the right style. He also changed leads, a little sloppy on his leads in the final furlong, but at least he changed, which he didn't do in his first start. So he's learning. He's getting that experience. So Bullard, to me, is a monster prospect.
All right, that's the first Big Mac. The second, if you're really hungry, would be Journalism. And Michael McCarthy's got one here who's maybe even better bred. This one by Curlin, and out of the La Cañada winner, Mopatism. Doug O'Neill had that one, a really solid mare who ran up and down pretty much every one of the distaff races. She was durable and very likable filly in her racing days. There's a lot to go with Journalism, and maybe not up to the stakes level yet, because in the second start, Maiden, at least we got to see what this one could do around 2 turns, Jeff. Let's let the fans get introduced to Journalism here and then get your take on his performance at Del Mar over the weekend.
Toppers at Seaside, who's dropped out of contention, passed by Grinnell and Journalism as they make their way to the top of the stretch. Brother Tony has gone by horses now to mid-pack, but it's Rank and Mellencamp who turned for home together. Rank in front. Rank has taken over the lead here under Antonio Fresu, moving away from Mellencamp, but here comes Journalism on the outside. Rank and Journalism by the 16th pole. Journalism to the front. Stop the presses. Journalism wins. Winning it by 3 on the wire to Rank.
What I liked about this, Jeff, we just saw the end of the race. Journalism actually broke on top, got the first call out of the starting gate, and then came back to the rider, and then was able to make that kind of run behind 111 for 6 furlongs. They weren't blazing out there. It wasn't a pedestrian race, but didn't need a meltdown to run that well. That was really good from start to finish for that colt.
Well, he had showed a lot of promise in his debut when they flat out gave him a run. Let him get out of the gate, get some dirt in his face, let him finish out, gallop out well. And he looked really good in that race, but he looked even better here. And, of course, I've always said, I'll say it again a million times, it's not the first race that's important with a 2-year-old. It's the second one, because then you figure out where they're headed. Did they get better? Did they go backwards? Did they mentally freak out? And this colt did everything like a seasoned pro in this race. He pointed out how handy he was when he broke and took back. Not the easiest thing to do, to come from off the pace at Del Mar on a track that's generally, as a general rule, kind of speed. But and he switched leads beautifully here. He did not do that in his first start. So there was a lot of things to like about Journalism. And again, Mike Curlin out of a group-winning distance dirt mare, first foal from that mare, Mopatism. I mean, now you're thinking, if you're Michael McCarthy, you think, okay, the other ones want a stake. This one's going to go into a stake. Do I separate them? What do I want to do here? How do I map out the plan? It's easy when you have one horse, but when you got 2, you got to be careful here. So I love them both. And like I say, I think in February, March, I think if they stay healthy, which is a big if, but if they stay healthy, they're the ones that people are going to be talking about in California, other than the Baffert so impressive and did so well on Breeders' Cup Day.
Let's talk about the guy at the controls for just a minute, Michael McCarthy. We know him from CC, the great filly and mare sprint winner, City of Light, a horse who won a Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile and a Pegasus World Cup, but he won the Preakness and was 3rd in the Belmont 3 years ago with Rombauer in 2021. And then he came back this year, and I don't know, did he get a little bit of Derby fever with Endlessly? We talked about, well, he's not going to go to the Triple Crown with them. Then ended up going to the Derby with the horse who was so good on synthetic and turf at 2 and synthetic at 3. It worked out okay. Endlessly ran a decent 9th in the Kentucky Derby. Certainly wasn't embarrassed or beaten a ton. So maybe you get a little bit of feel and you get your lips wet a little bit and moistened for the roses and a little bit of Derby fever. He's got different kind of horses in his barn maybe now than he did a couple years ago. And he's certainly a guy with a Triple Crown pedigree as a trainer, former assistant to Todd Pletcher for many years. So he's been down the road and he got there with Rombauer. Again, 2/3 of the Triple Crown. Rombauer ran really well, winning the Preakness, third in the Belmont. So Michael McCarthy might be a name we're going to see consistently on the Triple Crown Trail now in years to come. This is a pretty good indicator here in late November that he's got his hands on a couple good ones.
He absolutely can handle a top-class horse. He will win a major great. Well, he already won one classic. We know that. Right. But there's a Derby in his future, especially when he starts getting these very expensive either yearlings or homebreds that he's getting. You say he's got the pedigree because he worked for Todd, and he's been out in California for a number of years now. Right. And I always was impressed with the way he trained his horses. In other words, you watch them in the morning and you say, now that's the way a young horse should be breezing. Sometimes you don't see that. So, but with him, I think these colts will be properly trained, properly campaigned. The pedigree says, I mean, you can't, if you're looking for a classic type horse, this is what you look for. A gun runner, a curlin, this is what they're bred to do. And they're already farther advanced than they should be based on their pedigree. So, I mean, this was a Big Mac attack at Del Mar that we might look back and saying this is when we found two major classic contenders on the same weekend for the same trainer. And I'm excited to see how they develop.
Mark it down. You heard it here first on It's Official. Let's go to our second topic this week. Maybe some news there with the Michael McCarthy launch onto the Triple Crown Trail, but it's old hat for Wesley Ward when we talk about really fast 2-year-olds. He seems to have another one. Wesley Ward's latest jackrabbit could be this 2-year-old filly that we saw win the Notebook Stakes over the weekend. Her name, Shoot It True. Let's take a look back with Chris Griffith on the call.
It's the filly Shoot It True, who reaches the top of the stretch, has plenty so far, and now Shoot It True sprints for home. Kenny B with every shot to run her down, but Shoot It True's very game towards the inside. A final furlong to go, and Shoot It True is extending her margin now. Shoot It True. Kenny B rallying on, soon to be king from far back, but give it to a queen. Shoot It True, the filly in the Notebook. Shoot It True wins it over Kenny B, soon to be king, and Man in Finance in 1:10.
So nice performance there. We've seen Ward with these good 2-year-old sprint fillies turn out to be good ones over the years. Judy the Beauty, Kamari, some of these went on to become millionaires. Could this be the next Wesley Ward star sprint filly, Jeff?
I would think so. You remembered her at Keeneland when she broke her maiden first time out and 52 flat and won by 7.5 lengths. She was 3-5 in the race at Churchill on the 2-year-old race, the Kentucky Juvenile on Derby week, and obviously something happened to her. She had speed, faded, and then we don't see her again until this race, which was, to me, a questionable placement. You're running against the boys. Not that the fillies can't beat the boys, but you would have thought that looking at the nominations, you had Man in Finance, who won his first start by a pole. The horse that I thought was the logical winner of this race, Kenny B, who ran as well as I could hope him to run. He won his last race by 8 lengths with an 85 Beyer number. And you're taking a filly who hadn't been out since the spring and shows up in a race like this. Wesley doesn't do too many stupid things, I mean, he must have known what he had, and she just ran everybody off their feet. And not only did she do that, but she earned a 93 Beyer number. That's what the older mares run in terms of sprint numbers. So she's already there as a 2-year-old. I don't think she's going to run much farther than 3/4. She didn't change leads in this race, but there are plenty of races for her, either as a New York bred or maybe down in Florida where she can take on the Open Company, which I don't think they would be afraid to do. So there's a lot of good races for her in the future. But if she were to run like this and come back and do it again, then she's probably at the head of her class among the 2 turning 3 fillies in the sprint division anyway. And she's fast and she's good. And I was blown away with her performance.
If you're going to be really good 3-year-old filly sprinter, though, you better be able to get 7/8 of a mile. When you think about the schedule, you got the Beaumont at Keeneland, you've got the 8 Bells at Churchill, the Test at Saratoga. They're all 7/8 of a mile. So, if you can get to that, then you can have a very effective 3-year-old filly sprint season. We'll see if she can stretch to that trip. But right now, she looks really sharp. And Wesley Ward's got another big one on his hands with Shoot It True. Impressive as one of our headline performers last week. Let's go to our third topic this week on It's Official. We've got a little bit of news on the grass to talk about, and also to talk about Shug McGahee. He's got a little green party plan, if you will. He's really had a nice end of the season with some horses on the grass. But let's start with the news of the last 24 hours or so. That's the retirement of this year's Breeders' Cup Mile winner, More Than Looks. More Than Looks, the Cherie DeVoe trainee, had the big win last time out in the Breeders' Cup Mile. A tendon injury, Jeff, now sent into retirement and out the stud now for More Than Looks. Talk about his career and what we saw out of him. Just made 10 career starts, 5 of those wins. Your impressions of him on the track.
He's a good horse. He obviously had his issues, lightly raced, but there's a home for him at stud as an heir apparent to his sire, More Than Ready. Mm-hmm. And even though he didn't run that many times, he always ran well. Now, the problem is most North American breeders are a little hesitant to breed to grass horses. Mm-hmm. They say, okay, and I'll tell you, there's a horse out there named Oscar Performance who's done really, really well, but he's the exception to the rule. Mm-hmm. Most of your grass stallions don't sell that well. Most people go to buy yearlings or 2-year-old training. They're looking for dirt horses more than anything else. So I don't know how he'll do, but he's got a very good chance to emulate his sire. And his race in the Breeders' Cup was outstanding. I mean, I watched him at the quarter pole. I said, I know he's going to come running, but he can't beat those horses. He's got short stretch and all. I mean, you're not going to run by them. And he ran by them all. Right. So his turn of foot was very impressive. I'd give him a little bit of a look as a stallion. I really would. And they're not going to overprice him. I think it's 15 for the stud fee. Mm-hmm. That's fair. But you like More Than Ready, you might like More Than Looks. And I do think that I don't think that the intention was to retire him. I think they would have given him another year of running racing, mm-hmm. but they had no choice, unfortunately. So good luck to him, and good luck to the people who will breed to him.
Yeah, for a $135,000 yearling purchase, More Than Looks, more than paid himself back, especially with his performance in the Breeders' Cup Mile.
Goliad, 10 Happy Rose moves up alongside. Carl Spackler trying to come and get them. Johannes is closing with notable speech. More Than Looks trying to unwind from the back of the pack. Here is Johannes and notable speech. More Than Looks coming, 10 Happy Rose on the inside. A wild finish that goes to More Than Looks. More Than Looks gets up under Jose Ortiz to win the Breeders' Cup Mile.
So many times this time of year, Jeff, we're talking about those who are heading out, but we're also looking ahead to the next calendar year. We've got a couple horses on the grass we want to talk about, both for trainer Shug McGahee, who won major stakes races in recent weeks across the U.S. Shug's Green Party is what you called it in the headline here. And let's take a look first off at the Red Smith winner, a horse last year I thought was going to move up into this big turf division in Integration. And last year he won the Virginia Derby as a 3-year-old. I thought he had like Pegasus World Cup turf written all over him. He was the favorite in the World Cup turf, I believe, beaten favorite in there. And this season just never took off quite like I thought it would at 4. But a lot of times these turf horses get better the older they are. And in the Red Smith, it might have been his best performance of the year. Jeff, what do you make of Integration now and perhaps moving forward?
Well, he was a middle distance horse. He didn't go 1.25 miles last year, but this race here was 1 3/8, and there's a big difference for me anyway between 1.25 miles, which is usually a 2-turn race, mm-hmm. and then 1 3/8, which is a 3-turn race. And to me, maybe this is what he's always wanted to be, a marathoner. Mm-hmm. And his win in the Red Smith, and it wasn't unexpected because his form was solid, not as good as I thought it would be this time in his career. Mm-hmm. But I thought visually he was very impressive because he rallied against the grain, as they say. There were slow mm-hmm. fractions. They weren't coming back to him. And he just accelerated and showed a turn of foot that maybe he doesn't have in middle distance races. But this was good, and now, of course, they'll back him up, but back to a middle distance. Now we have to say, okay, is he strictly a marathoner, or can he act at a mile and 3/16? Because I thought he was going to win the Pegasus last year, and he didn't really have an excuse. Maybe he's a better horse right now, but what my point is that right now at this time of the year, the North American grass horses, they're not that strong. There's a lot of money out there. Euros haven't shown up yet that I know of. And the ones that are left over from last year are probably taking a bit of a break. So there's an opening here for a horse like Integration and Shug, and we'll talk about his other horses in a minute as well, to really make some hay here in the first 3 months of the season here for grass horses.
Let's take a look at that Red Smith victory. Back to New York. It's Integration getting up.
Liability all in towards the outside, and here comes Limited Liability trying to challenge Rebel Red, and they have quickly put 3 lengths on the rest of the field. Limited Liability is trying to catch Rebel Red, and Rebel Red is very game towards the inside. Limited Liability with every shot, and now Integration in full gear as they approach that final 16. 3 of them across the course, but here comes Integration with that burst of speed, and Integration wins the Red Smith. Integration wins that photo there. Limited Liability to the outside of Rebel Red, and a late run.
Question will be, like you said, do you cut back? Can he be a Pegasus World Cup turf kind of horse, or do we go long on the grass and look for those McDermott and some of those big long races that we see down at Gulfstream Park during the course of the winter season? We shall see. But he'll be in Florida for Shug over the course of the winter. His stablemate might be one he has to worry about in Battle of Normandy. This is a horse who won the River Cities at Churchill Downs in recent weeks, and it was back-to-back wins in the River Cities before Shug, who won it last year, was Smoking Tea. He looks at some of these races late in the year, and he's got horses who are ready to roll at this time when some of the others are kind of put away for the winter, and it paid off again with Battle of Normandy. Let's go back and take a look at his win in Kentucky.
At the back, top of the stretch, Battle of Normandy comes off the turn and takes charge and kicks on by 2. Battle of Normandy clear by 2 with a furlong to go. Reckoning Force and Gigante chasing. Wonderful Justice trying to hang tough. Master of Foxhounds dives to the rail, but time is running out, and Battle of Normandy is clear by 3, and he's gonna do it. Battle of Normandy, the winner in the end.
This one absolutely feels like a Pegasus World Cup turf kind of horse, Jeff. Your thoughts on Battle of Normandy?
Nice colt, 97 buyer number, legitimate number, especially when you consider how slow they went the first part. But that's fine, because you go slow and then you explode from the quarter pole of the wire. You're going to be tough to beat, especially if you have the kind of tactical speed that Battle of Normandy has. 4 in a row now for him, and he's a City of Light colt that, as City of Light did, got better with age, and most of his get do. And I think this is the kind of colt who will do just that. I mean, he's now 4 turning 5. He should be in the prime of his life. And based on his win streak, his numbers rising, his tactical speed, his ability to give you a second move and come home so fast, you would think that he would be really, really highly competitive at any grade 1 in North America that he wants to run in after the first of the year. And obviously the one at Gulfstream would be logically the next stop, and he may have to run against the stablemate. I tell you what, this Shug McGahee Green Party looks pretty strong in the grass division after the first of the year.
We shall see with those. Now, again, we talk about this time of year. It's some horses that are exiting the stage completely, some that are gearing up towards next year, and some we haven't seen a while trying to get back on track. That's where we're going to go for our next topic, where no news is bad news in this department, because if you're not back working towards the winter, it's time to get on, and we haven't seen or heard much at all of late. In fact, since October, from a horse, Nyso, so you think might be the most talented of the 3-year-olds in this entire crop this year. But Nysos, we haven't seen him since February. He got back on the workout tab in October, and we still haven't seen him. With a race like the Malibu, the grade 1 7-furlong race at Santa Anita the day after Christmas, now just about 6-7 weeks away. We're not far off from it. You're not going to make that kind of race. So no news out of Nysos, not good news.
No, he there's not a doubt in my mind, based on his resume, that he was the most talented 3-year-old colt of his crop this year. He only ran 3 times. Broke his maiden first time out by 8 or 9 lengths. Came back and won another allowance race, or no, a stake, I should say, and then won the Bob Lewis, and that was it. And he never, to my knowledge, he never left the track. His injury, whatever it was such that they thought it would heal. In fact, he did make it back for his first breeze, went 47-2 on October 10th. And I was saying, great, this is perfect. He's back. He's worked a half already. He'll easily make the winter meeting, if not sooner. It looks like they gave him the proper time. Unfortunately, that October 10th work, that's the only one he's had. We have not seen him now for several weeks. And I wonder if he can't take one workout before being stopped on again, what is the point? He's by a very hot sire in Nyquist. Right. And I would think that because we haven't heard anything from him, that he might be retired. I don't know that. It's none of my business. And I'm not going to go asking around. But I mean, the evidence is pretty strong here. It's circumstantial, but with the breeding season coming up, you would think that they'd want to kick on with that and start booking mares to him and promoting him. The fact that they haven't done that yet may be viewed as somewhat optimistic because they haven't yet. But if you can't stay sound after 4 or 5 months off and then have one workout and then can't work again for 2 months, that's not a good sign. And it's too bad because I think greatness was there, and he's going to go to stud, and we'll never know how good he really could have been or would have been. So anyway, I hope he makes it back, but I'm not looking forward to that. On the other hand, Baffert had another undefeated 2-year-old or 3-year-old last year who is back, and he looks great. We're talking about May Moon. He's a frosted colt, won his first 2 starts. Again, broke his mane sprinting first time out by a pole. This was a breeze that he had over the weekend, 36-3. That not a team drill. That's a horse he picked up on the turn. And he looks good. I mean, this is a colt that I thought was among the top 5, if at worst, on this crop. And if he comes back for Bob, Jeremy, I think he's going to be a major player in the older division next year.
You got that Malibu at 7 furlongs. Could that be the comeback race off the bench? We will see December 26th, opening day of that classic meet at Santa Anita. But good news, bad news in that Baffert camp with those horses who have been away since February. Again, we haven't seen anything. The bad news on Nysos. The good news with May Moon, though, that one back working. The $900,000 frosted 2-year-old purchase, trying to get back to the races. Hasn't run since February the 11th. So a little bit of news and update there from a big worker over the weekend. Now let's talk about some stars of the future. We always look ahead here on our final 5th topic of the It's Official podcast. Our stars of tomorrow this week are going to take you to Gulfstream Park on the 16th on Saturday. A horse named Grayscale, first-time starter, well bet. This 2-year-old, another one by Frosted. Gabe Pruitt on the mic, subbing in for our man Pete Aiello. Let's hear Gabe's call of Grayscale, debuting a winner.
4th, 3 more back to 1 more Duke as the move towards the top of the stretch. Drayden Van Dyke still cruising on Grayscale. The favorite Grayscale looking to polish it off. He's past the half, 46-3. Commendator is down the center of the track in 2nd. Insurmountable is 3rd. It's 4 back to Vanilla Franco 4th, but in deep stretch, Grayscale. Waddell draw clear late. Grayscale as advertised on debut at 1-5. It's all Grayscale. He will win it easily. Commendator a solid 2nd, 4 back.
What do you make of this one, Jeff? Grayscale.
This, I looked him up because he brought $240,000 as a yearling, and that's a lot of money for a Frosted. So I figured, and I love Frosted, don't get me wrong, but you shouldn't have to pay for that kind of a horse being by that sire by $240. So I figured, okay, this bottom line, the female family must be great. It's got to be that. I went and looked at the catalog page. There's no stakes horses in the 1st generation. There's no stakes horses in the 2nd generation, no stakes horses in the 3rd generation. This is the kind of horse, if you pick up the catalog, you figure, I can get this horse for like 20, But these guys don't make that many mistakes, guys who spend $240. So he was supposed to be must be a great looking horse, I'm sure. And then he's 1-5. When was the last time you saw a first timer other than a Baffert maybe that was 1-5 first time out?
Right.
He won the race. He got a good number. He wasn't knocked about at all inside the furlong pole. He was just kind of coasting along there. It was smart. You don't need to brutalize him first time out.
Right.
Now the question is, Jeremy or Safi Joseph, what do? Do you bring him back in 3 weeks and try to steal a stakes at Tampa Bay, or do you say, wait a minute, I don't have to do that. I mean, let's give this colt a chance to be somebody. isn't there a mile race for 3-year-olds around the first of the year in Gulfstream?
Yeah, the Mucho Macho Man,
Right.
and that would fit in perfectly, I would
Yeah.
think, on that program. And Safi usually has a hand to play in there. Of course, you've got that Florida Sire Stakes Series Sizzler in there, who's been running through the wind there.
Right.
Rated by Merit, I believe the name is, just exceptionally fast. Perhaps you see him in that race, but yeah, that could be a good spot for him. The Mucho Macho Man for Grayscale, one to watch in the 3-year-old ranks. I mentioned Gabe Pruitt on the mic there. He was filling in for Pete Aiello, who was out for the week. Gabe apparently got a flat tire on the way to the track one of the racing days and couldn't get there for the first race. So our buddy Brian Nadeau had to get in the announcer's booth and call the first race on the card in substitution. That had to be a high panic attack. But Brian did a really nice job. So hats off to him. And his quote afterwards, he has a newfound respect for what the track announcers have to do in putting together a race call. But good to see him pinch it in there. One of the good guys in the game, our buddy Brian Nadeau.
Yeah.
Jeff, that's our 5 topics this week. Let's give the quick review of them here as we go down. The Big Mac attack at Del Mar. We saw 2 major potential 3-year-olds for next year. The Bob Hope winner for Michael McCarthy, that one being Bullard. And then the second start route winner, Journalism, an $825,000 colt. Jeff says he may have a stronger hand to play Mike McCarthy than Bob Baffert right now for next year's Triple Crown. The Ward's latest Jackrabbit, headline number 2. That was the Notebook Stakes winner, the New York bred filly Shoot It True, who beat the boys, and she'll be one of the top 3-year-old filly sprinters next year if things progress. Shug McGahee's Green Party plan, we talked about that, how he could have a couple horses towards the Gulfstream Championship meet coming up, including the Pegasus World Cup Turf, with Battle of Normandy and Integration. Of course, we talked about the retirement of Breeders' Cup winner More Than Looks, who's headed off to Lanes End Stud. No news is bad news. Well, that's the case with one of the top 3-year-olds this year, Nysos, who just can't get back on track. We haven't seen that one since October 10th, but his Belling mate was back on the workout tab this past weekend. Good to see May Moon training back. Maybe we get to see him on December 26th in the Malibu at Santa Anita. And our star of tomorrow was Grayscale, called home by Gabe Pruitt in that one. Safi Joseph trains Grayscale, this week's star of tomorrow. These 5 topics are now official because Jeff Siegel and I said so. That's the way we play it. We'll do it all again next week on Thanksgiving week, where we're going to have a lot to review, especially from an international standpoint, Jeff, because this Saturday night into Sunday morning, Sunday in Japan, is the Japan Cup, one of the world's most important races, and an international cast. A lot of our fans are going to know Auguste Rodin, of course, who won the Breeders' Cup Turf 2 years ago at Santa Anita. Goliath, Fantastic Moon from Europe. They're going to head to the land of the rising sun, but the favorite amongst oddschecker.com is a 3-year-old filly Servinia, and then the 5-year-old 4-time Group 1 winner in Japan. Second choice is Deuce. So the locals are the 2 favorites according to oddschecker.com for the Japan Cup. You can watch and wager on that with Express Bet and First Bet again late Saturday night into Sunday morning. The Japan Cup, the headline card this weekend, and we'll have all the wagering for that, Jeff, and we get a chance to recap it next week.
Well, I think it's Thanksgiving next week. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So are we working or not?
We are working on Tuesday. We will recap the show on Tuesday. We will have it's official for you on Tuesday next week, but there will be no handicapping show on Friday of next week. So our first call podcast will be off, but we will be doing our Tuesday show. It's official next week. And then we're going to kick back and eat some turkey and stuffing and everything that goes with it.
I will do that for sure. No, we'll have lots to talk about, and we'll do maybe a little bit of previewing as well, because we won't have a Friday show,
right?
As you mentioned. So we'll be back next week, and as you mentioned, we will look ahead and look a little bit back, and look forward to December, and I'm still looking forward to that turkey you talked about. I'm not really adept at making a turkey, but where I'm going, I don't have to make it.
That's right. Kick back and watch some football. There'll be games on for sure.
Yeah, you got that right. So, okay, well, good luck to everybody this weekend. We'll talk on Friday and see if we can find some money-making opportunities over the weekend. We'll see if we can do that and continue on, and looking forward to the first of the year.
All right. On behalf of Jeff Siegel, I'm Jeremy Plonk, and everybody with First Bet and Express Bet. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you on Friday.